My name is Gina, and this is the story of how my life fell apart and then came back together. I'm 35 years old, and until recently, I thought I had it all figured out. I was the sales director at a large company, married to my college sweetheart, Mark, and we had just bought our first house. After graduation, I landed an entry-level job at a promising startup. I worked my way up the ladder, putting in long hours and sacrificing weekends. It paid off when I was promoted to sales director last year. Mark, on the other hand, had a harder time finding his footing. He bounced between a few jobs before settling as a shift supervisor at a mirror manufacturing company. Our best friends were another couple, Lisa and Tom. We met them at a neighborhood barbecue shortly after moving into our new house. Lisa was a stay-at-home wife, always impeccably dressed and with a spotless home. Tom was a successful entrepreneur who seemed to work as much as I did. When we bought our house, I was the one who qualified for the mortgage. I put it in my name and assumed all the responsibility for the payments. I didn't mind at the time, I was making good money, and I figured Mark would contribute when he could. As time went on, I noticed Mark becoming more and more dissatisfied with his job. He'd come home complaining about his boss, saying things like, "He's always on my case about everything. I can't do anything right," in his eyes. I tried to be supportive. "What happened this time?" I'd ask, setting aside whatever work I'd brought home. "He called me out for being 5 minutes late," Mark would huff. "As if that makes a difference. And then he had the nerve to tell me how to talk to the clients. I'd been doing this job for years." I'd listen and nod, but inside I was growing frustrated. These seemed like normal workplace interactions to me, not the personal attacks Mark made them out to be. One day, Mark came home earlier than usual. I was in the middle of a conference call, but excused myself when I saw his face. "What's wrong?" I asked, muting my laptop. "I quit," he said simply. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "You what?" I couldn't take it anymore. My boss made another comment about my attitude, and I just snapped. I told him where he could shove his job and walked out. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the panic rising in my chest. "Mark, we have a mortgage. We can't afford for you to be unemployed right now." He waved off my concern. "I'll find something better. Something where I'm appreciated." I wanted to scream. Instead, I just nodded and went back to my call. After Mark quit his job, our lives changed dramatically. I took on extra shifts and increased my workload, desperate to keep up with our mortgage payments and daily expenses. My days became a blur of meetings, sales calls, and late nights at the office. I was exhausted, but I didn't see any other choice. Meanwhile, Mark seemed to be in no hurry to find new employment. He'd occasionally mention an interview he'd been to, but there was always some reason it wasn't the right fit. The commute would be a nightmare, he'd say, or, the boss seemed like a real jerk. I tried to be patient, but my frustration grew with each passing day. One evening, I came home late to find Mark lounging on the couch, watching TV. "Hey," I said, dropping my bag by the door. "Have you eaten?" He looked up at me, frowning. "No, I was waiting for you to cook something." I stared at him in disbelief. "Mark, it's 9 p.m. I've been working since 7 this morning. Why didn't you make dinner?" "Because that's your job," he snapped. "You're never home anymore, Gina. The house is a mess, there's no food in the fridge, and I can't remember the last time we had a proper meal together." I felt my temper rising. "My job? My job is keeping a roof over our heads and food on the table." "What exactly is your job right now, Mark?" "I'm looking for work," he shouted. "Do you think I enjoy sitting around all day? But I'm not going to settle for just any job. I deserve better than that." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "I understand that, but we can't afford for you to be so picky right now. We have bills to pay." "Always about the money with you," he muttered. "What happened to supporting each other through thick and thin?" "I am supporting us," I said quietly. "But I need you to meet me halfway." Please, just try harder to find something. Anything. We can reassess once we're more stable. Mark didn't respond. He just turned back to the TV, effectively ending the conversation. I went to bed hungry and angry that night, wondering how much longer I could keep this up. The next day, I met Lisa for coffee during my lunch break. She looked fresh and relaxed, her hair perfectly styled and her nails freshly manicured. "Gina, honey, you look exhausted," she said, concern in her voice. "Are you getting any sleep at all?" I sighed, sipping my double espresso. "Not much. Work's been crazy, and things at home are tense." Lisa reached out and patted my hand. "You're working too hard. You need to take care of yourself, relax a little. Tom always says a happy wife makes for a happy life." I bit back a retort. Lisa meant well, but she had no idea what my life was like. "It's not that simple for us right now," I said instead. "But I'm sure things will get better soon." As the weeks went by, the tension in our house grew thicker. Mark's job search seemed to be going nowhere, and I was stretching myself thin, trying to keep everything afloat. Our conversations, when we had them, were short and often ended in arguments. One evening, I came home to find Mark dressed up, ready to go out. "Where are you going?" I asked, surprised. "Out with the guys," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "We're going to play golf." "Golf? At this hour?" I was skeptical, but too tired to argue. "Whatever. Have fun." As he left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. But I pushed it aside, focusing instead on the mountain of work I'd brought home. The next day, I decided I needed a break. I took a rare day off from work and planned to surprise Mark with a weekend getaway. When I called to tell him, he seemed distracted. "This weekend? I can't. I've got plans with the guys again." I felt my heart sink. "Again? Can't you reschedule?" "No, it's important. Sorry, babe." He hung up before I could respond. Frustrated and hurt, I called Lisa. Maybe she and Tom would want to do something. "Oh, Gina," Lisa's voice was apologetic. "We'd love to, but Tom and I are visiting my parents this weekend." "Rain check?" I agreed, trying not to sound as disappointed as I felt. It seemed like everyone had plans except me. On a whim, I decided to go shopping. Maybe a little retail therapy would lift my spirits. As I was browsing through a department store, I heard a familiar voice. "Gina, what are you doing here?" I turned to see Tom, Lisa's husband, looking surprised and slightly uncomfortable. "Tom, I thought you and Lisa were visiting her parents this weekend?" His brow furrowed in confusion. "Her parents? No, we didn't have any plans. Lisa said she was spending the night at your place." My blood ran cold. "What? No, she's not with me. She told me you two were out of town." We found a quiet cafe and sat down. Tom looked grim as he spoke. "I've had suspicions for a while now," he said. "Lisa's been acting strange, always on her phone, making excuses to go out. I think our spouses might be having an affair." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I couldn't breathe. "No," I whispered. "They wouldn't." But even as I said it, pieces started falling into place. Mark's mysterious outings, Lisa's constant presence in our home, the way they looked at each other. Tom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I'm going to hire a private investigator. We need to know for sure. And we don't let on that we suspect anything. Can you do that, Gina?" I took a deep breath and straightened my shoulders. Yes, I can." As I drove home that evening, my mind was reeling. How had I not seen this coming? I walked into our house, half expecting to catch Mark and Lisa in the act. But the house was empty and quiet. Mark came home late, smelling of alcohol and mumbling about a great game of golf. The next 2 weeks were excruciating. I went through the motions of daily life, pretending everything was normal, while my insides churned with suspicion and dread. Mark continued his golf outings and job hunting charade, and I feigned belief in his increasingly transparent lies. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Tom. "We need to talk. Meet me at the cafe in an hour." My heart raced as I made an excuse to leave work early. When I arrived at the cafe, Tom was already there, a thick manila envelope on the table in front of him. He slid the envelope across to me without further ado. With trembling hands, I opened it and began to look through the contents. There were photographs, credit card statements, hotel receipts, and transcripts of text messages. It was all there in black and white, irrefutable evidence of Mark and Lisa's betrayal. "How long?" I managed to choke out. Tom's voice was flat. "At least 6 months, according to the investigator. Maybe longer." I felt like I might be sick. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of me working myself to the bone while Mark. "There's more," Tom said quietly. "Gina, you need to check your bank accounts. All of them." Confused, I pulled out my phone and logged into my banking app. What I saw made my blood run cold. My savings account, the one I'd been quietly building up for years as an emergency fund, was empty. With shaking fingers, I checked my credit card balance, which I had given Mark to pay for gasoline. Maxed out. "He's been funding their little adventure with your money," Tom said, his voice tight with anger. "Fancy dinners, hotel rooms, gifts for Lisa. All on your dime." The shock gave way to a fury I'd never experienced before. All those times I'd come home exhausted, all the extra hours I'd put in, all the sacrifices I'd made, and this is how Mark repaid me? "What are you going to do?" I asked Tom, my voice surprisingly steady. He leaned back, a cold smile on his face. "I'm going to divorce Lisa and take her for everything she's worth. And then some." He paused, looking at me intently. "The question is, what are you going to do, Gina?" I took a deep breath, my mind racing. "I want revenge," I said slowly. "But I want them to suffer. I want them to feel as humiliated and betrayed as I do right now." Tom nodded approvingly. "I was hoping you'd say that. I have an idea, but it's going to take some planning." Over the next hour, Tom and I hatched a plan. It was devious, it was cruel, and it was exactly what Mark and Lisa deserved. That night, when Mark came home, I greeted him with a smile. "Hey, honey," I said, kissing his cheek. "Listen, I was thinking, why don't we throw a party next weekend? To celebrate our friendship with Tom and Lisa. It's been a while since we all got together." Mark's eyes lit up. "Yeah, that sounds fun. I'm sure Lisa would love to help plan it." As I turned away, ostensibly to start dinner, I allowed myself a small, grim smile. Mark and Lisa had no idea that their perfect little world was about to come crashing down around them. The week leading up to the party was a masterclass in deception. I threw myself into the preparations with a manic energy, playing the role of the perfect hostess. I called Lisa daily, discussing menu plans and decorations, all while picturing the look on her face when her world fell apart. The day of the party arrived, and our house was transformed. I had outdone myself with the decorations and food, determined that everything should be perfect for the grand finale. Guests started arriving in the early evening. I played the gracious host, making small talk and ensuring everyone's glasses were full. Tom arrived alone, explaining that Lisa would be there shortly. She was picking up a special dessert. When Lisa finally swept in, she was the picture of domestic perfection. Her hair was immaculate, her dress flattering, and in her arms was an elaborate cake. "Sorry I'm late," she trilled, air-kissing my cheek. I wanted everything to be just right. As the evening progressed, I watched Mark and Lisa carefully. To the casual observer, there was nothing untoward in their interactions. But now that I knew what to look for, their stolen glances and subtle touches were glaringly obvious. Finally, as the sky outside darkened, Tom stood up and clinked his glass for attention. "Everyone, if I could have your attention please," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "Gina and I have prepared a little entertainment for you all." If you'd like to gather outside, we've set up a screen for an interesting film. There was a murmur of excitement as our guests filed out onto the back lawn. Mark looked at me, confused. "What's this about?" he asked. I smiled sweetly. "Oh, just a little trip down memory lane. Come on, you don't want to miss this." Outside, everyone settled onto blankets and chairs, facing the large screen we'd set up. Tom started the projector, and at first, it showed innocent scenes, the four of us on various outings, laughing and having fun. I saw Lisa relax, probably thinking this was just a sentimental slideshow. How wrong she was. Suddenly, the music changed, becoming darker, more ominous. The images on the screen shifted, showing Mark and Lisa in various compromising positions, leaving hotels together, kissing in a car, entering our house when I was at work. A collective gasp went up from the audience. I heard Lisa's mother let out a strangled cry. Mark jumped to his feet. "What the hell is this?" he demanded. I stood up slowly, my voice ice cold as I addressed the stunned crowd. "This, ladies and gentlemen, is what betrayal looks like." While Tom and I worked ourselves to the bone, our spouses were carrying on an affair behind our backs. Lisa was sobbing now, mascara running down her face. "Gina, please, I can explain." "Explain?" I cut her off. "Explain how you've been sleeping with my husband for months. Explain how you've been spending my hard-earned money on your little trysts." Tom stepped forward, his face grim. "Lisa, don't bother coming home. I've already changed the locks. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." The party dissolved into chaos. Guests were whispering furiously among themselves. Lisa's parents were berating her, her father's face purple with rage. As the shocked murmurs of the guests subsided, I steeled myself for what I knew I had to do next. I walked back into the house, retrieved the manila envelope from my desk drawer, and returned to the lawn. Mark was still standing there, looking shell-shocked and pale. I thrust the envelope into his hands. "Here are the divorce papers, Mark. I want you out of my house tonight, and I'll be demanding compensation from both you and Lisa for your betrayal." Mark fumbled with the envelope, his hands shaking. "Gina, please, we can talk about this. I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I cut him off coldly. "You've said enough with your actions. Now leave." He stood there, divorce papers in hand, looking as if he'd been slapped. Guests were approaching me, offering sympathetic words and support. In the middle of the lawn, Lisa had sunk to her knees, mascara running down her face as she pleaded with Tom. "Please, Tom, don't divorce me. I made a mistake. We can work through this." To my surprise, Mark rushed over to Lisa. He grabbed her arm and hissed, "Get up. Don't humiliate yourself like this. We can start over, make a new life together." Lisa's tear-streaked face contorted with fury. She yanked her arm away from Mark and spat. "Start over? With you? I don't need an unemployed man who can only pay compliments. I need someone who can actually support me." As the last of the guests trickled out, offering final words of support, Tom approached me. His face was a mask of controlled anger, but his voice was gentle when he spoke to me. "Gina, if you need any help, legal, financial, anything, please don't hesitate to call me. We're in this together, okay?" I nodded, grateful for his support. "Thank you, Tom. The same goes for you." As Tom left, I turned to Mark, who was standing alone, looking lost. "I want you gone by morning. Leave your keys on the kitchen counter." I turned my back on him and walked into the house, closing the door firmly behind me. Through the window, I watched as he slowly made his way down the driveway and out of sight. The house felt eerily quiet after the chaos of the evening. I sank onto the couch, emotionally and physically exhausted. Tears threatened to spill, but I held them back. I was sad, yes, mourning the death of my marriage and what I thought was a close friendship. But underlying that sadness was a sense of calm, even relief. For months, I had been carrying the weight of an unemployed, dissatisfied husband. I had worked myself to the bone, trying to keep our life afloat while he contributed nothing but complaints. Now, that burden was lifted. Yes, the road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free. In the weeks following the explosive revelation at the party, life took on a new rhythm. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the familiar routine of sales reports and client meetings. But unlike before, I made sure to maintain a healthier balance, reducing my overtime and actually using my vacation days. One afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I ran into Tom. He looked tired but determined. "Gina," he greeted me with a nod. "How are you holding up?" I managed a small smile. "I'm doing okay. How about you? Any news?" Tom's face hardened. "The divorce is final. I kicked Lisa out of the house last week." I wasn't surprised, but I still felt a twinge of something. Not quite sympathy, but a sense of shared experience. "How did she take it?" He shrugged. "Not well. Apparently, her parents meant what they said at the party. They refused to take her in or help her financially." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? That seems harsh." "They're old-fashioned. Adultery is a big deal to them." Tom sighed. "Last I heard, she's working as a sales clerk at some department store downtown." The irony wasn't lost on me. Lisa, who had always looked down on my career, was now forced to work a job she would have considered beneath her. "What goes around comes around, I suppose," I murmured. Tom nodded grimly. "How are things with Mark?" I rolled my eyes. "He won't stop calling and texting. Keeps begging for another chance. But I feel nothing. The love, the trust, it's all gone. I can't imagine ever wanting to be with him again." We parted ways, and as I drove home, I reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. The next day, I met with my lawyer to discuss the progress of my own divorce proceedings. She greeted me with a triumphant smile. "Good news, Gina. The judge has reviewed the evidence, including the detective's report, and has ruled in our favor on all counts." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means," my lawyer said, "that Mark has been ordered to pay you substantial compensation for his infidelity. Moreover, he's required to repay every cent he took from your reserve account and credit card for his affair with Lisa." As I left the lawyer's office, I felt lighter than I had in years. With the compensation and repayment from Mark, I was able to pay off the remainder of my mortgage in one fell swoop. The house was now truly, fully mine. That evening, as I was celebrating my newfound financial freedom with a glass of wine, my phone buzzed. It was Mark, again. "Gina, please," his message read. "I know I messed up. But I love you. Can't we try to work things out? I'll do anything." I stared at the message for a long moment. Once, those words might have moved me. Now, they just left me cold. I typed out a response. "Mark, stop contacting me. It's over. I don't love you anymore, and I don't want to try again. Please respect my decision and leave me alone." I hit send and then blocked his number. It felt final, decisive. And it felt good. Life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Just when I thought I had everything figured out, that I was content with my newfound independence, fate threw me another curveball. It started innocently enough. Tom and I had been in regular contact since our respective divorces, offering each other support and companionship during this challenging time. One evening, about 2 months after my divorce was finalized, Tom called me. "Hey Gina," he said, his voice warm. "I was thinking. We've both been through hell lately. How about we celebrate our new beginnings? I could bring over a bottle of wine, and we could toast to our freedom." I hesitated for a moment, but then thought, why not? "Sure, Tom. That sounds nice. Come over around 8? When Tom arrived, bottle of expensive red wine in hand, I was struck by how different he looked. Gone was the stressed, angry man I'd seen at the fateful party. He seemed lighter, more relaxed. He'd even gotten a haircut that suited him well. We settled on my patio, the warm summer evening wrapping around us like a comfortable blanket. As we sipped our wine, our conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and moments of shared understanding. "You know," Tom said, refilling our glasses, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually grateful for what happened. It opened my eyes to so much." I nodded, understanding completely. "I know what you mean. It's like, we're finally free to be ourselves." As the night wore on and the wine bottle emptied, I found myself noticing things about Tom I'd never paid attention to before. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle timbre of his laugh, the strength in his hands as he gestured while talking. I'm not sure who made the first move. One moment we were laughing about some shared memory, and the next, we were kissing. That night, Tom and I crossed a line we'd never even considered before. When morning came, I woke up to find Tom already awake, watching me with a mixture of affection and uncertainty. "Gina," he said softly, "about last night." Last night was unexpected, but it felt right. "Maybe we could date? Take things slow, see where this leads?" I found myself nodding, a smile spreading across my face. "I'd like that, Tom." Over the next few weeks, Tom and I embarked on a new journey together. We went on proper dates, dinners, movies, long walks in the park. To my surprise, Tom revealed a romantic side I'd never seen before. He brought me flowers, left sweet notes for me to find, and always seemed to know just what to say to make me smile. "You know," I said to Tom one evening as we cuddled on my couch, "I never would have predicted this." He chuckled, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Life's full of surprises, isn't it? But I have to say, this is one surprise I'm very grateful for." As I snuggled closer to him, I found myself agreeing wholeheartedly. We weren't looking too far into the future yet, both of us knew the importance of living in the present. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about what that future might hold.
Hey everyone, I'm Harper. I'm about to graduate from one of the top universities in the country with a degree in computer science. It's been a crazy journey and I'm proud of how far I've come. But if I'm being real, my family life is complicated. My parents split when I was a kid, and after that, my dad's side of the family pretty much disappeared. That includes my Uncle Robert. I have these vague memories of him visiting when I was little. There was one time he helped us out during a rough patch, but it's all kind of hazy now. As graduation gets closer, I've been thinking a lot about the past. I've worked so hard these last 4 years, but there's this nagging feeling that something's missing. Hey Jess, you okay? That's Mike, my boyfriend. He's been my rock through all the madness of college. Yeah, I'm good, just thinking about family stuff, I say, trying to brush it off. Your dad's side again? He asks, raising an eyebrow. I nod, chewing on my lip. I was thinking about inviting Uncle Robert to graduation. I admit, testing the waters. Mike gives me a skeptical look. The estranged uncle? Are you sure that's a good idea? I don't know, maybe it's time to try and rebuild some bridges. I pull out my phone and start scrolling through social media, searching for him. It takes a while, but I finally find Uncle Robert's profile. My finger hovers over the message button. What's the worst that could happen? I mumble as I type out an invite. Life goes on. I'm juggling finals, prepping for job interviews, and trying to hold onto my sanity. A few days later, my phone pings. It's Uncle Robert. He accepted the invite. Holy crap, I say out loud, staring at my screen. What's up? Mike asks, glancing up from his textbook. Uncle Robert, he's coming to the graduation. Mike sets his book aside. Wow. How do you feel about that? I let out a shaky breath. Nervous, excited, I don't know. It's weird, right? A little, but hey, if this is what you want, I've got your back. Graduation day comes faster than I expected. My hands are shaking as I adjust my cap one last time. My best friend Alicia gives my arm a reassuring squeeze. You ready, Jess? As ready as I'll ever be, I reply, trying to calm the butterflies in my stomach. The ceremony feels like a blur. Before I know it, I'm walking across the stage, diploma in hand. I scan the crowd and spot my mom, her face glowing with pride. Then I see him, Uncle Robert, sitting a few rows back. He actually came. After the ceremony, I'm swept up in a sea of hugs and congratulations. My mom pulls me into a tight embrace, tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you, sweetie." "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." That's when I see Uncle Robert making his way toward me. He looks older than I remember, more gray in his hair now. "Jess, congratulations." "Thanks for coming, Uncle Robert. It really means a lot." He nods, then glances around. "Can we talk privately for a moment?" Curiosity gets the better of me, so I follow him to a quieter corner. That's when his demeanor shifts. "So, about that loan I gave your mother 10 years ago," he says. I blink, caught off guard. "Loan? What loan?" "The $5,000 I lent her for your education. It's time to pay up." My jaw drops. "I don't know anything about that. Are you sure?" His face hardens. "Of course I'm sure. Your mother promised she'd pay me back, and since it was for your education, I figure you should be the one to repay it." I'm stunned. This can't be happening, not today of all days. "Uncle Robert, I just graduated. I don't have that kind of money." His voice rises. "Well, you better figure it out. I didn't come here just for the ceremony, you know." People are starting to stare. I can feel my face heating up in embarrassment. "Please, can we talk about this later? This isn't the time or place." "No, we'll discuss it now," he snaps. That's when my mom notices the commotion and hurries over. "Robert, what's going on?" Uncle Robert turns to her, his tone sharp. "Perfect timing, Lisa. Care to explain why your daughter hasn't paid me back?" Mom's face pales. "Robert, not here. Not now." "Why not?" "It seems like the perfect time to me. The family's all together. Isn't that nice?" His sarcasm cuts through the air. I look between them, completely lost. "Can someone please tell me what's going on?" Mom sighs. "Honey, it's complicated. Your uncle did help us out a long time ago, but nothing." Uncle Robert cuts her off. "I gave you that money in good faith, and you promised to pay it back." I see Mike pushing his way through the crowd, worry etched across his face. "Everything okay here?" he asks. Before I can answer, Uncle Robert scoffs. "Oh great, the boyfriend. Did you know you're dating a freeloader?" "Excuse me?" Mike's voice drops dangerously low. This is spiraling out of control. "Everyone please, can we just take a breath?" I say, trying to defuse the situation. "Uncle Robert, I had no idea about this loan, and I'm sorry, but I can't pay you back right now. Maybe we can work something out later." "Later? I've waited 10 years. Your mother's been dodging me, and now you're trying to do the same," he snaps. Mom steps between us. "That's enough, Robert. You want to talk about the past?" "Fine." My mom's voice shakes with anger. "Let's talk about how you manipulated Dad into changing his will. Or how about the money you borrowed from Aunt Sarah and never paid back?" The air between them crackles, years of buried tensions rising to the surface like an electric storm. I'm caught in the middle of it all, watching helplessly as what should have been the happiest day of my life unravels into chaos. As I stand there, my heart pounding, I can't help but wonder what other secrets have been buried, hidden in the tangled web of my family's past. The graduation disaster left me reeling. Even after the crowd had dispersed and I was back home, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than just an unpaid loan. So I decided to start digging. "Mom, we need to talk about Uncle Robert," I said one evening, sitting down at the kitchen table, the weight of unresolved questions pressing on me. She sighed, her face etched with exhaustion. "I was hoping we could just forget about all of that." "I can't. Not until I know the truth. What really happened with that loan?" For a moment, she hesitated, then slowly reached for a box of old documents from a cupboard. "It's a long story, Jess. Are you sure you want to hear it?" "I'm sure." We sifted through faded bank statements and worn-out letters, my stomach twisting with every new discovery. A pattern started to emerge. Uncle Robert's name, always tied to some kind of money problem. "He didn't just lend us money, did he?" I asked, feeling the weight of realization settle in. Mom shook her head, her eyes filled with regret. "No, he didn't. After your father left, Robert swooped in like he was some kind of savior. He offered to help with the bills, but there was always a catch. He guilt me into paying for his car repairs or covering his rent. It was never ending. A surge of anger shot through me. "Why didn't you tell me?" she sighed, looking down. I was embarrassed, Jess. I thought I could handle it on my own. The next day, I decided to call my grandmother. Her voice trembled on the other end of the line as she shared her own experiences. "Robert, he's always been good at manipulating people. He convinced your grandfather to change his will, leaving everything to him. We didn't find out until it was too late. The puzzle pieces were starting to fall into place, but I knew I needed more. I had to reach out to Aunt Sarah, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. When I called, I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Jessica, is that really you?" "Hi, Aunt Sarah. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask you something about Uncle Robert." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." For the next hour, Aunt Sarah poured out years of frustration and hurt. Robert had borrowed money from her, promising to pay it back with interest. He never did. Instead, he spread rumors, turning the family against her. "I'm so sorry, Aunt Sarah. I had no idea." "It's not your fault, sweetie," she sighed. "Robert's always been good at covering his tracks." As I dug deeper into Robert's deceptions, my personal life started to unravel. Mike and I argued when I canceled our date night to continue my investigation. "Jess, I get that this is important, but you can't let it consume you," he said, frustration clear in his voice. "You don't understand. This isn't just about me, it's about my whole family. I'm trying to understand, but you're shutting me out." He was right, but I couldn't stop now. I was close to unraveling the whole truth. My job search was suffering too. I bombed an interview, too distracted by a lead I'd uncovered about Robert's business dealings. "I'm sorry, but you're not the right fit for this company," the interviewer said, disappointment in her tone. I left the office feeling crushed. Was I sacrificing my future to expose the past? That night, I spread out all the evidence I gathered across my bedroom floor. Bank statements, emails, handwritten notes. It all led to one undeniable conclusion. Uncle Robert hadn't just manipulated my mom and Aunt Sarah, he'd been exploiting the entire family for years. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Mike's number. I needed to talk to someone, but I hesitated. Would this only drive a bigger wedge between us? As I sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of my family's past, I realized I had a choice. I could keep digging, potentially destroying my relationships and future, or I could let it go. But then I thought of my mom, my grandmother, Aunt Sarah, all the people Robert had hurt. They deserved justice, and I was the only one who could make it happen. Taking a deep breath, I dialed Mike's number. It was time to let him in on everything. Whatever came next, I couldn't face it alone. After weeks of planning, the day of the family reunion finally arrived. My heart pounded as I watched everyone file into the rented hall, including Uncle Robert. "Thanks for organizing this, Jess," my mom said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, trying to calm my nerves. It's time we cleared the air. Once everyone was seated, I stood up. "I know you're all wondering why I called this reunion. The truth is, we've been living with a lie for too long." I pulled out a projector and began presenting the evidence. Bank statements, emails, recorded conversations, all pointing to Robert's years of manipulation and fraud. "You little snake," Robert shouted, jumping to his feet. "How dare you?" But his protests were drowned out as other family members started speaking up. "He borrowed $10,000 from me and never paid it back," Cousin Tom revealed. "He spread rumors about me to cover up his own theft," Aunt Sarah added. As Robert's facade crumbled, the family united against him. The decision to cut ties was unanimous. Unexpectedly, my investigation caught the attention of a corporate security firm. Impressed by my persistence and skill, they offered me a job in fraud detection. Months later, I was thriving in my new career, and my family was closer than ever, healing old wounds. Then, the news broke. Robert was facing charges for tax evasion and fraud in his business dealings. "Karma's a bee, huh?" Mike said, showing me the article. I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Justice had been served without us having to lift a finger. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I realized the importance of standing up to toxic people and the power of truth. My future was no longer shadowed by Robert's manipulation. "Ready for dinner with the family?" Mike asked, grabbing his keys. I nodded, grateful for the stronger, more honest relationships we've built. "More than ready. Let's go." The story ends here. What would you have done in Jessica's shoes? Would you have exposed Uncle Robert or kept the family secrets buried? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hey there, I'm Maddie. I've got a story that'll make your head spin. I'm 28, living in my childhood home, and my world is about to be turned upside down. My mom, Linda, the sweetest soul you'd ever meet, has been battling cancer for months. It's been heartbreaking watching her fade away, but I wouldn't be anywhere else. 5 years ago, Mom married Robert Walsh. He seemed like a decent guy at first, always smiling and bringing her flowers. But everything changed when his son Eric moved in. He's as warm as a block of ice. Maddie, honey, could you bring me some water? Mom's voice breaks through my thoughts. I rush to her bedside. Of course, Mom. How are you feeling? She smiles weakly. Oh, just tired. I can't ignore how frail she looks. The doctors gave her weeks, maybe less. It's killing me inside, but I put on a brave face for her. As I help her sip some water, I hear hushed voices coming from the hallway. Robert and Eric again. They've been having these secretive chats more often lately. Everything okay out there? I call out. Eric's head appears in the doorway, his face expressionless. Just discussing some business. Nothing for you to worry about. I bite my tongue. There's something about Eric that puts me on edge. Maybe it's the way he looks at me, like I'm just an inconvenience, or how he's always whispering with his dad. Later that evening, as I'm making dinner, Robert corners me in the kitchen. Maddie, we need to talk about what happens after. I freeze, the knife hovering over the carrots I'm chopping. After what? He clears his throat, looking uncomfortable. After your mother. I cut him off. I can't think about that right now. She needs me. Robert nods, but there's something in his eyes I can't quite place. Of course. We'll discuss it later. As he walks away, I can't shake the feeling that something's not right, but I push it down. Mom needs me focused on her, not on my suspicions about my stepdad and stepbrother. That night, I'm sitting by Mom's bed, holding her hand while she sleeps. I catch a glimpse of Eric watching us from the doorway, a strange, calculating look on his face. It sends a shiver down my spine. What? I hiss at him. He shrugs. Nothing, just checking in. But as he walks away, I feel the walls closing in. There's a storm coming, I can feel it. And somehow, I know I'm not going to like what it brings. The beeping of the heart monitor is slowing. I hold Mom's hand tighter, trying to memorize every line on her face. Remember when we used to go to the beach every summer? I whisper, fighting back tears. You always said our house was like that, a place we'd always come back to, no matter what. Mom's eyes flutter open, a faint smile on her lips. Maddie, my sweet girl. Those were her last words. The monitor flatlined, and just like that, she was gone. I broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Robert placed a hand on my shoulder. Maddie, I'm so sorry. I barely heard him through my grief. Eric stood in the corner, his face unreadable. As the doctor confirmed Mom's passing, Eric stepped forward. Maddie, there's something you need to see. He handed me a stack of papers. I stared at them, uncomprehending. What is this? Robert cleared his throat. Your mother made some changes to her will before she passed. I flipped through the documents, my heart sinking with each page. This can't be right. It says everything goes to you, Robert, and then I have to vacate the property within 24 hours. Eric nodded. Those are the eviction papers. I'm sorry, but you need to leave. I looked at them in disbelief. This is a joke, right? Mom would never do this to me. Robert sighed. I'm afraid it's all legal, Maddie. Linda and I discussed this. She wanted to make sure I was taken care of. Taken care of? What about me? This was my home, she promised. My voice broke as the reality set in. Mom had betrayed me. She left me with nothing. Why? I demanded, tears streaming down my face. Why would she do this? Robert looked uncomfortable. She felt you needed to stand on your own 2 feet, that you'd relied on her for too long. Each word was like a knife to my heart. Had Mom really thought so little of me? Eric stepped forward. You need to start packing. We'll give you until tomorrow evening, but then you have to be out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mother just died, and you're kicking me out. Where am I supposed to go? Robert shrugged. I'm sure you have friends you can stay with. We're being more than fair. Fair? I whispered, more to myself than to them. Eric's voice was cold. Life isn't fair, Maddie. It's time you learned that. I spent that night in a daze, packing what I could into suitcases and boxes. With each item I put away, another memory surfaced, now tainted by betrayal. As dawn broke, I stood in the driveway, my car loaded with what little I could take. Robert and Eric watched from the porch. I hope you're happy, I spat at them. Robert had the decency to look ashamed. Eric just stared, impassive. As I drove away from the only home I ever known, I couldn't stop the tears. Mom was gone, and with her, everything I thought I knew about love and family. I had nowhere to go, no plan. All I knew was that the person I trusted most in the world had betrayed me, and I was completely, utterly alone. I've been crashing on Megan's couch for weeks now. Every morning, I wake up hoping it's all just a nightmare. But reality hits hard when I open my eyes to an unfamiliar ceiling. Maddie, I made breakfast. You should eat something. Megan calls from the kitchen. I drag myself off the couch, feeling like a ghost in my own life. I'm not hungry. Megan sighs, pushing a plate towards me anyway. You need to keep your strength up. I pick at the food, my mind drifting back to Mom. A memory surfaces, her teaching me how to make pancakes on a lazy Sunday morning. The happiness in that moment now feels like a cruel joke. I just don't understand, I mutter, more to myself than to Megan. How could she do this to me? Megan sits beside me, her face full of concern. Maybe there's more to the story. Have you tried talking to Robert again? The thought of facing Robert or Eric makes my stomach churn. What's the point? The will was clear, she left me with nothing. My phone buzzes, another missed call from a potential employer. I've been ignoring them all. What's the use of building a career when everything can be taken away in an instant? You should call them back, Megan urges. Getting back to work might help. I shake my head. I can't. I can't do anything right now. Later that day, I find myself staring at old photos. Mom and me at my college graduation, both of us beaming with pride. Now I wonder if she was just putting on an act. Did she ever really believe in me? Megan finds me surrounded by scattered pictures, tears streaming down my face. Oh, Maddie, she says softly, sitting beside me. What if she never loved me? I choke out. What if everything was a lie? Megan puts an arm around me. That's not true. Your mom loved you so much. But her words feel hollow. If Mom loved me, how could she leave me homeless and penniless? Days blur together. I barely leave the apartment. Megan tries to get me to go out, to see other friends, but I can't bear the thought of facing the world. One night, after Megan's gone to bed, I find myself packing a bag. Maybe if I just leave, start over somewhere new, I can escape this pain. As I'm zipping up the bag, Megan appears in the doorway. What are you doing? I can't stay here anymore. I say, my voice barely above a whisper. I have nothing left here. Megan's eyes fill with tears. You have me. Please, Maddie, don't go. I pause, my hand on the doorknob. Part of me wants to run, to keep running until I can't feel this pain anymore. But another part, a tiny voice in the back of my mind, tells me to stay. I don't know who I am anymore. I admit, my voice breaking. Everything I thought I knew, it's all gone. Megan takes my bag gently. Then we'll figure it out together. You're not alone in this, Maddie. I let her lead me back to the couch, feeling utterly lost and broken. As I lay there in the dark, I wonder if I'll ever feel whole again. Mom's betrayal has left a wound so deep, I'm not sure it will ever heal. I decide to stay, not because I have hope, but because I have nowhere else to go. Tomorrow is just another day of trying to piece together the shattered remnants of my life, wondering if I'll ever understand why the person I loved most in the world could hurt me so deeply. It's been 6 months since Mom died, and I'm still stuck in this fog of grief and anger. I've managed to land a small graphic design gig, but my heart's not in it. Every day feels like I'm just going through the motions. My phone rings, an unknown number. I almost ignore it, but something makes me answer. Hello, is this Maddie Thompson? It's James Carlson, Robert's old business partner. My heart races. What do you want? We need to talk. It's about your mother's will. I meet James at a coffee shop, my stomach in knots. He looks nervous as he slides a folder across the table. I can't keep quiet anymore. Robert, he forged your mother's will. I stare at him, uncomprehending. What? I saw him do it. He and Eric, they faked Linda's signature. My world tilts on its axis. No, that's not possible. James pushes the folder towards me. I have proof, bank statements, emails. Your mother never betrayed you, Maddie. I flip through the documents, my hands shaking. It's all there. Evidence of Robert and Eric's deceit. Tears stream down my face, but this time they're tears of relief mixed with renewed grief. Why are you telling me this now? I ask. James looks down, ashamed. I was scared, but I couldn't live with the guilt anymore. The next few weeks are a whirlwind. I contact the authorities and they launch an investigation. Detectives interview me, James, even Megan. They comb through financial records and computer files. Finally, I get the call. We have enough evidence to arrest Robert and Eric Walsh for fraud and forgery. I watch from my car as they're led out of my childhood home in handcuffs. Robert looks defeated, but Eric glares at me with pure hatred. I feel nothing but a grim satisfaction. Stepping back into the house for the first time in months, memories flood back, but now they're not tainted with betrayal. I run my hand along the familiar walls, feeling like I can finally breathe again. In Mom's old room, I find something tucked behind her dresser, an envelope with my name on it. My hands tremble as I open it. My dearest Maddie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I want you to know how much I love you. You were the light of my life, and I'm so proud of the woman you've become. This house is yours, as it always should be. It's your safe haven, just like we always said. Never doubt my love for you. Always and forever, Mom. I clutch the letter to my chest, sobbing. All the pain, all the doubt, it washes away in that moment. Mom never betrayed me. She loved me until the very end. In the following months, I start to rebuild my life. I throw myself into my design work, finding joy and creativity again. But more than that, I find purpose in helping others. I begin volunteering at a support group for victims of family fraud, sharing my story, listening to others. It helps me process my own experience. Each meeting, I feel a little stronger, a little more whole. One evening, as I'm leaving a session, a young woman approaches me. Your story, it gave me hope. Thank you. I smile, feeling a warmth I haven't felt in months. We're all in this together. As I drive home to my home, the one Mom wanted me to have, I realize that while the pain will never fully go away, I'm no longer defined by it. Mom's love was real, and it's still with me. It's in every corner of this house, in every memory we shared. I may have lost her, but I found myself again. And I know, wherever she is, Mom is proud of me for standing strong and helping others find their way out of the darkness. This is my new beginning, and I'm ready to embrace it. Now, I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven Robert and Eric for their betrayal, or would you have pushed for the harshest possible punishment? What do you think is the right balance between justice and mercy in cases of family fraud? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hi, I'm Sophia, a 19-year-old college student with a story that might just change the way you think about family. Growing up as an adopted child, I was surrounded by the warmth and love of my parents, who never made me feel anything less than their own. But there was always a chill in the air when it came to Grandma Margaret. At family gatherings, while laughter and conversation filled the room, a cold front seemed to settle wherever she was, especially near me. So, Sophia, how's your little college adventure going? Grandma Margaret would ask, her voice tinged with disapproval, as though going to college was a frivolous pursuit. Oh, it's enlightening, I'd reply, trying to keep things civil, even though I knew she didn't approve of my major in social work, a field she thought was too charitable for someone as privileged as me. My parents, John and Mary, often tried to ease the tension. Mom, Sophia's doing great. Aren't you proud of her? My dad would say, attempting to bridge the gap between us. I suppose Grandma Margaret would mutter, sipping her tea and scanning the room for a more suitable conversation partner. As my 18th birthday approached, I secretly hoped things with Grandma might change. We sent her an invite to my birthday dinner, despite her usual frosty demeanor. Maybe this year will be different. I mused to my best friend, Lily, over the phone. Maybe she'll see that I'm more than just the adopted granddaughter. Lily, ever the optimist, encouraged me, saying, "You're better than you think, Sophia." Maybe she'll finally see that too. On the night of the party, I carefully chose a blue dress my mom said brought out my highs, hoping it might soften Margaret's usual scrutiny. As guests arrived, laughter filled our home until Margaret walked in. Her eyes swept over me with the same cold indifference. Happy birthday, Sophia. You look mature, she said without warmth. Thank you, Grandma. I'm glad you could come, I replied, my smile feeling forced. The dinner went on as usual, with polite conversation and simmering tension. But halfway through the evening, just as I was about to cut the cake, the doorbell rang. I offered to get it, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. When I opened the door, I found myself staring at a woman who looked oddly familiar, her features echoing my own. Sophia, I'm Evelyn, she said, her voice trembling. I'm your birth mother. I got a call from Margaret. She told me you wanted to reconnect, that you needed to know your real family because you felt out of place. The knife I was holding slipped from my hand, clattering against the plate. Behind me, the chatter in the room fell silent. Is this true, Sophia? Are you unhappy here? Evelyn asked, her eyes searching mine for answers I didn't have. No, that's not true at all. I stammered, feeling trapped. I turned to look at Margaret, her expression unreadable. This was the storm I hadn't seen coming, one brewing from within the very walls I thought were safe. Margaret had orchestrated this. The festive atmosphere of my birthday shattered in an instant, leaving me in the eye of a betrayal that would change the meaning of family for me forever. Margaret told me you were unhappy, that you felt out of place in your adoptive family. Evelyn continued, her voice breaking. She said you wanted to meet me to connect with your roots. That's not true, I said, my voice cracking. I don't know why Margaret would say that. My eyes darted to my grandma, pleading for an explanation. My father stepped forward, his face filled with confusion and anger. Why would you do this, Mom? He asked. My mother, her voice a mixture of disbelief and hurt, demanded. What are you trying to accomplish, Margaret? She deserves to know where she comes from, Margaret snapped. She has a right to know her real family, not just the one that's been playing pretend. Grandma, how could you? I choked out, the hurt evident in my voice. They're not pretending. They are my family. Sophia is our daughter, Margaret. How dare you undermine that? My dad's voice rose, his usual calm replaced by fury. Margaret, seemingly taken aback by the outcry, mumbled, I thought I was doing the right thing. She has a right to know her blood. Blood isn't the only thing that makes a family, Margaret. You've crossed the line, my mom said, her disappointment palpable. Turning to Evelyn, I tried to offer some reassurance. I'm sorry you were dragged into this under false pretenses, I said softly, hoping to mend at least one part of the damage Margaret had caused. I just wanted to meet the daughter I couldn't raise. Margaret made it sound like you wanted the same. Evelyn's voice was soft, her sorrow reflecting the chaos Margaret had created. The room grew still, the festive decorations a stark contrast to the heavy hearts we all carried. I glanced around at my family, my real family, and felt a renewed sense of belonging, despite Margaret's attempts to fracture it. Let's talk, Evelyn. Not because of what Margaret did, but despite it. I want you to know the family that raised me, the family I love. My words, offered as a bridge between my past and present, hung in the air, a tentative offer of reconciliation amidst the ruins of the evening. Thank you, Sophia. I like that, Evelyn responded, her acceptance the first step toward healing, a glimmer of hope on a night marred by unexpected revelations. Why would you do something like this, Margaret? What were you thinking? My father's voice was stern, demanding answers in the wake of the ruined celebration. I thought it was helping, Margaret replied, her tone defiant. I thought she needed to reconnect with where she came from, to understand that she wasn't really one of us. One of us? Sophia is more a part of this family than anyone else could be. How could you say she's not one of us? My mother's voice trembled with a mixture of fury and pain. Her protective instinct fiercely awakened. You never understood Mary. You and John took her in, but blood is blood. I thought she should know her own kind, Margaret replied, her old-fashioned beliefs clashing with the values we held dear. Her own kind? We are her kind, Margaret. We are her family. John's voice, usually so calm, broke under the weight of the betrayal. Mom, Dad, I love you. You raised me, you cared for me. Margaret, why can't you see that? Why can't you accept that I am happy? That this is my real family? My voice interrupted the rising argument, a plea for understanding amidst the chaos. Sophia, I thought I was doing the right thing. Maybe I was wrong. For the first time, Margaret's voice softened, a crack in her defiance finally appearing. You've caused so much pain tonight, Margaret. How do we move forward from here? My mother's question lingered, the uncertainty heavy in the room. We start by acknowledging that Sophia's place in this family is not up for debate. She is our daughter. That's final. If you can't accept that, Margaret, I don't know how you can be part of our lives. My father's ultimatum was clear, the boundaries set. Sophia, I'm sorry. I don't know if you can forgive me, but I am sorry. Margaret's apology was hesitant, her pride battling with the realization of the hurt she had caused. I appreciate your apology, Grandma, but it's going to take time. A lot of time, I responded, the wound too fresh, the betrayal too deep to simply move past. As Margaret left the room, the silence that followed was a relief, a chance to breathe. John and Mary wrapped their arms around me, their love a balm to the sting of the evening's revelations. We love you, Sophia. Nothing changes that, not now, not ever, my mother whispered, her reassurance a gentle echo in the chaos. A reminder of the unbreakable bond we shared. As we stood united, the challenges ahead seemed daunting but not insurmountable. With the love and support of my parents, I knew we could face anything, even the deepest family rifts. Weeks later, I sat across from my therapist, the room quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock. It's just so hard to understand why she did it. Margaret wanted to send me back to a place I haven't belonged in years, I said, my voice tinged with the lingering hurt. Sophia, it's important to process these feelings. What she did was not a reflection of your worth, but of her own struggles with acceptance, my therapist gently explained, her words steady amidst my turmoil. I know, but it still hurts. My parents have been incredible, reassuring me every day that I'm loved, that I belong. I replied, grateful for their unwavering support. Those therapy sessions became a lifeline, helping me rebuild trust in the family that had always been my home. Meanwhile, Margaret's situation took a tragic turn. Her health began to decline rapidly, a cruel irony as she found herself needing the very family she had once tried to tear apart. One afternoon, my mother called me into the living room. Margaret was there, looking frail and diminished. Sophia, I need help. I am sorry for everything. Her voice was weak, her eyes pleading. Margaret, this is hard for me, but I can't ignore someone in need. Not even you. Despite everything, I felt a stir of compassion. We were still family, even if the bonds were frayed. Thank you, Sophia. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm grateful for your help, Margaret admitted, her reliance on us evident in her tone. In the weeks that followed, I found myself accompanying Mary to Margaret's doctor visits, supporting her through appointments. In the quiet, sterile hospital corridors, I saw a side of Margaret I'd never known. I was wrong, Sophia, she confessed one afternoon during a long wait. Your parents, they're good people. And you truly are their daughter. Her voice was barely a whisper, but the sincerity was undeniable. It's been a long journey, Grandma. It'll take time to heal, I said, my own walls cautiously coming down. Time? Yes. I hope there's enough of it left for me to make things right, she mused, her words tinged with regret. My therapy sessions continue to be a safe space for reflection. You're navigating this with great maturity, Sophia. How you're handling Margaret's situation is commendable, my therapist remarked during one session. It's not easy, I admitted, but I'm learning that family isn't just about blood. It's about who stands by you when the ground shakes. My understanding of family was deepening as Margaret leaned on us more, and our household shifted. From the ashes of betrayal, new bridges were being built, slowly, painstakingly. In the quiet of Margaret's room, the steady beep of the monitor reminded us of life's fragility. Her breathing was labored, her health fading faster than we'd expected. Despite the pain she had caused, I found myself holding her frail hand in mine. You've been so kind to me, Sophia. After everything I've done, she murmured one afternoon, her voice stripped of its former sternness. It's what family does, Grandma. We take care of each other, no matter what. I replied softly, my words meant to soothe the wounds of our past. I see that now. I wish I had seen it sooner, Margaret said, her eyes meeting mine with a clarity that spoke of realizations come too late. We can't change the past, Grandma, but we can accept its lessons, I responded, squeezing her hand gently. Forgiveness, hard won through my own journey of healing, was finally given. As the days turned into nights, Margaret's moments of lucidity grew rarer. But in those moments, she spoke of gratitude, regret, and the understanding she had gained at the end of her life. When the end came, it was peaceful. Margaret passed away with my parents and me by her side. a somber yet serene finale to a life marked by both strife and change. Her funeral was a quiet affair, attended by those who had witnessed her transformation and supported her in her final days. Standing by her grave, I felt a weight lift. A chapter was closing, not with bitterness, but with the quiet dignity of reconciliation. She found peace, Sophia. And I think we can find it too, Mary whispered as we watched the last of the mourners leave. Yes, Mom. It's time to look forward, to build on the love we have. As we walked away, the sun broke through the clouds, its rays like fingers of warmth reaching down to soothe the chill of the graveyard. It felt like a sign of new beginnings, of the enduring power of love and acceptance. A fitting tribute to the lessons learned and the family bonds that had ultimately withstood the tests of time and trial. As our story draws to a close, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you believe true forgiveness is possible when someone deeply betrays family trust, as Margaret did? Can family bonds overcome such deep wounds? Share your opinions in the comments below.